Welcome, YouTube. This is your boy Slick, Detroit's Darkest Times. Let's go ahead and subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and the notification bell. Today we're going to talk about plane crash and plane ride. These are events that happen in Michigan. The first plane I'm going to talk about is the plane crash on 94 freeway. This plane was headed to Arizona. After takeoff, "14 seconds later," so this happened right as it took off, but 14 seconds later, it went up and came right back down. And I don't recall what caused the accident, but it took off going to Arizona. 14 seconds later, it came back down on 94 freeway. And there was only one survivor. It was a 4-year-old girl. And it was a horrific scene. And really a big disaster. And after seeing this, it really made me think about riding airplanes, you know. But for it to go up and just come right back down, maybe later I'll Google and see if they found out what was the cause of the plane crash. And but I'm not certain on that part. But it didn't. It only got up in the air and came right back down. 14 seconds. And yeah. Also, the story I heard when this happened, that a lot of people were like coming out of the neighborhoods and going down to the wreckage. And, I don't know what the theory is. Maybe some people was trying to help. Maybe some people was looting or whatever. I mean, that's just the story that I had got later on. But that was just a real bad scene. And it killed everybody except 4-year-old girl. She survived. And it's just when this happened, I was really thinking twice on riding a plane anywhere, because that was a big event for me that that I had experienced. And I was like, if this could happen, I don't know if I'll ever ride an airplane, because it just seems like, just by me thinking about it, it seems like, the motors were running for it to be able to get off the ground. And then I would say, I had to look into it and stuff like that, but I would say the motors quit running in midair and it just dropped back down. That's be my only thinking about it. But I would have to look into it and see exactly what caused the accident. But that was an experience that I had seen and stuff like that, and I was just like, that was a crazy incident, For and then what was weird is it killed everybody but one girl that was like 4 years old, and that was something else. So that stayed with me, for a long time, and it was just a horrific scene, and as time went on, then it became my turn to ride an airplane. And the way this took place is I was in the South for a little bit, and I was working construction. It's and I actually lived with my bosses. It was him, his wife, and 3 kids in Centerville, Tennessee. And they had like a real big house and a lot of extra rooms and all that. So they asked me, did I want to stay there? And I did. I took them up on the offer and worked for them, doing construction. And while I was working for them, I was underage, meaning I wasn't 18. But I was underage, and I worked for them doing different things. Like they mainly worked at apartment complexes when they had to do the contract of putting the doors in apartments, the woodwork, and all that kind of stuff. And my job was to stock the doors in the apartments and put them, they're different sized doors, so you got to put them in the apartment, and then you got to put them where it goes, like if it's a bathroom door, or front door, or closet door, or whatever. But anyways, that was my job, and I did that. And then one time, as time passed, and these were real good people. The boss's name was Tom, and his wife's name was Kathy. And they were good people, and they treated me really well. And anyways, I'm working, and then one week, it's on a Monday, she's like taking me to work, and then she's like, hey, I want to drop you off at this construction site. And it was just basically where they was cutting the trees down. They had a construction trailer, and she said, I'm going to drop you over there because the guy that's supervising that, he wants you to chop some wood up for some firewood for his house. And I was like, all right, because it didn't matter to me what I did as long as I was getting paid. But anyways, I go over there, and she introduced me to the guy that's in the construction trailer, and then he takes me out, shows me what I need to be doing. And basically, he just had trees, chopped up, and he just wanted the logs to be split. And I had an axe, I had a sledgehammer, then I had a steel wedge. And, I worked with the axe for a while, but then it started getting dull. And then he told me, he said, hey, if the axe gets dull, just start using the sledgehammer and the wedge, the steel wedge. And this is like, a little bit of labor right here. And and like I said, I'm under the age of 18. But anyways, I'm working there about a half a day, and then I had to switch to the sledgehammer and the steel wedge that splits the wood. And that's going good for a little bit. Then all of a sudden, I grabbed this log and I'm getting ready to split it. And, tap the steel wedge into the log. Then I went to swing. And when I swung the sledgehammer, I didn't get a good connection. It hit it, but it didn't get a good connection. So what had happened is a piece of the sledgehammer broke off, chipped off. And then it shot inside my leg. So after that, I felt a pain in my leg, and I looked down, and my pants was tore, and there was blood coming out of my leg. And I'm in a wooded area, And so the first thing I'm thinking, I'm not thinking about the sledgehammer or anything like that. The first thing I'm thinking is somebody's in the woods hunting, and I actually got shot in the leg. That's the first thing that come to my mind. And then, so I go, I go walk over to the construction trailer, and I tell the man that I got hurt, and he was like, well, what happened? I just told him, I was chopping wood, and all of a sudden that happened. And I told him, I don't know if somebody's in the woods shooting or what the deal is, But anyway, so he called my boss back. They came back over there, and then took me to the hospital. And I want to say the hospital was in Nashville, because I'm not for sure. It might not have been in Nashville, but usually we worked in, big cities or something like that most of the time. And, but anyway, there was a hospital I went to, and then my boss, not the man, but the lady, she was the one that took me to the hospital. And then they was asking me my birthday and stuff like that, so I told them my birthday. And then she looks at me weird, and I'm not thinking nothing about it, And then she looks at me weird, and then after they take care of me and stuff, and what we come to find out, it's a piece of lead in my leg, and they took it out and sewed my leg up. And then he wrapped it up, and he just said, when you take a shower and stuff, wrap your leg with plastics, and you can still take a shower. You just don't want to get, soap and stuff inside there, because it might cause infection. And then they gave me, prescription of antibiotics and stuff like that. And then that's when she found out I wasn't old enough to be working, because I didn't have a work permit or anything. I think if I had a work permit, I probably would have been good, but I didn't have that, and I was underage. So then she says, well, my insurance is not going to cover this bill, so I'm going to have to pay this bill out of pocket. So she pays the bill out of pocket. And then I'm thinking, well, now I ain't gonna be able to work because my leg's jacked up, and they said kind of don't stay off your leg as much as possible for a few days. So we go back. At the end of the day, we go back to the house, and her husband's there. We tell him what happened, stuff like that. And then I was like, now I ain't gonna be able to work. And then he said, I tell you what I'll do. He said, just take a few days, take it easy. And like I said, I'm living with him at the time. He said, take a few days, take it easy. And he said, what I'll do is I'll still pay you your weekly pay and just take care of the house and stuff and, kind of watch the kids and stuff like that until you get better where you're able to go back to work. And then I had to later on go back to the doctor for them to release me because I was under the doctor's care. But anyways, as time passed, I'm healing up, and then like I said, he just wanted me to kind of watch after the kids and clean the house, whatever I got to do. But I'm still earning my weekly check, so I was like, yeah, I'll do that because I knew I couldn't do no construction for a while, and then. I remember I got their son. He was about, I want to say he was about 11, I guess. And once I got better, what I used to do is I used to jog through that whole town every day. And because I was, they told me I need to exercise the leg, get my muscles back strong and all that. So that's what I did. I had jogged through that town, but I also took his son wanted to go with me, and he was like 11. He was about 11 or 12, and so he actually jogged with me, but he couldn't believe how far I was going to jog, But anyways, I jogged through that whole town. And this is another country town that's like an Andy Griffith town, in the hub of the town. It's in Centerville, Tennessee. And anyway, so I used to jog a lot, and their son would jog with me and stuff like that. And then they were big on archery, and they shot guns, shot bow and arrow, stuff like that. So we started going to the archery range with the bow and arrows. And first time I ever did this, because being a Detroiter in them days, shooting a bow and arrow was like way far away from what you would normally do, So anyways, they said, hey, we're going to the archery range. We're going to take you so you can see how it is. And then his wife was going to stay home, and it was just going to be me, him, and his kids. And he said, you could take my wife's bow and arrow. And they all had bow and arrows and stuff like that. Well, I took hers. He told me which one to take, but he didn't show me what arrows to take. So I just grabbed whatever arrows, not knowing that certain arrows are pretty expensive, And it just so happened I grabbed her expensive arrows when I went. And this archery range, it's like you shooting at bales of hay, but it's got targets on there. And each aisle is like different footage. You got a 25 foot and a 50 foot, and it just different distance. So I ended up losing like several of her expensive arrows, but I didn't know they was expensive because nobody even let me know that. But anyways, we did that. We had some fun, doing that. I thought that was interesting. And then one time we went to shoot guns, and he had like a 44 Magnum, a 38, a muzzle loader, and another one. I think it was a 22 or something like that. But anyways, one time we went to do that, and this was just in an area that they knew, I guess, was safe to shoot at. It was like there's a mountain, a high mountain behind the area that you're shooting at or whatever. So there's nobody there. It's just mountaintop. And anyways, he had this Impala. It wasn't a new one. It was a used Impala, but it had a white vinyl top, and it was already cracked up real bad on the vinyl top. And I shot the 44 and the 38, and then his son was getting the muzzle loader set up, and he said, "You ever shot a muzzle loader?" I was like, "No." And so anyway, he said, "Well, just prop it on top of the car, kind of, and shoot it and use the car as a rest or whatever." And I shot it, but it kind of shredded the vinyl top of the car. But it was already, this vinyl top was already ruined anyways, but it just shredded that. And they started laughing and stuff like that. It was kind of funny, but I didn't mean to do it. It just happened like that. And that was a weird incident, And then we used to go to there was a hardware store in that town, and Tom and Kathy, they knew everybody in that town because this is a real small town. And then he was friends with the guy that ran the hardware store, and I think it was a hardware store. It might have been a little sports store. Because what they had there is they had guns, they had arrows. It was probably a little sporting store is probably what it was. I don't know why I said hardware store. But anyways, it was a little store, and the guy that ran the store, he was friends with him. And, we went over there that day because we was looking for bow and arrows for me and a gun for me, and for shooting. And, bow and arrows for next time we go to the archery range. And then I was looking at some bow and arrows, and we bought that, and then we was going to buy the gun the next time we went back, but I was just looking at them, And then, he said, "Hey, if I buy this gun, it's really my gun, and this is just a gun you're going to be able to take when we go shooting guns, but and which I understood that, it was just, they just wanted me to have my own firearm when we went to, target shoot and stuff like that. But as time progresses, he's got this, they live in this big white house in Centerville. And anyways, right next to it, if you go out the back door, he had built a big garage, and he was building an apartment above the garage. But at this time, there was a ton of wood inside the garage, and building equipment and stuff like that. And then it had the staircase going upstairs, and it was all finished on the outside, but it still needed a lot of stuff done. And let me take that back. All the lumber was outside the garage where they had been building the garage, but once they got it all built up, it wasn't complete. There was still a whole bunch out there. And once I got better, before I went back to work, he started having me work right there at the house because there was a lot of stuff needed to be done. Like all that lumber, it was covered up with tarps and stuff, and he wanted to stack it neatly inside the garage. So at that time, the garage would be able to keep the rain off of it when he was using tarps, So, and that was a job too, because that was some pretty good labor, But I got all that in there. Meanwhile, I'm talking to a girlfriend of mine in Detroit City. And when I'm talking to her, she's wanting me to come back to Detroit City. And I'm ready to go back, even though I was having a good time, working with them and they was all good people and stuff like that. I was ready to go back, And so she asked me, when can I come back? And I said, well, I'll come back this weekend when I get paid. And then she was like, all right. And so I talked to them, and they was kind of upset about it with me leaving, because everybody, got to know me and we all got along and stuff like that. And they was just a little disappointed that I was leaving. But anyways, he was like, I said, I want to catch a bus and go. And he was like, you realize how long it'll take on a bus to go from here to Detroit City? And the reason I said that, because, about the plane crash and stuff like that, I wasn't even trying to think about an airplane, And then he was like, the airport's closer than the bus station. He was like, if you get on a plane, you could be there by dinner time. And I was like, I was really leery about it, and kind of, I told him, I really didn't trust airplanes, basically, because, and the only reason is because that bad accident on 94 freeway of the airplane crashing on 94 freeway. So, so he was like, you'll be all right, you'll be all right. And he said, but it's up to you. If you want to take the bus, I'll take you to the bus station. But I'm telling you, a plane's going to be a lot faster, and you'll be there a lot quicker, So he finally talked me into it. So I went to the airport, and I walked in. As soon as you walk in the airport, I went straight, because he basically just, he went in with me until I got my ticket. But anyways, I went straight to the front desk and I asked them how much a ticket would be. And they told me, and what my thing was, I was trying to get the cheapest ticket that I could to save as much money as I could. So I was like, you got any cheaper tickets? And then she pointed down the hall, down the area there that had a little window. And she said, yeah, that down here, they got cheaper flights. It's called People's Express. I don't even know if they still got that business anymore or not. But anyway, that's what it was called. And so I went down there, and then the lady said, yeah, it's $89, but you have to take a plane from here to New York. Then you have to get off in New York, get on another plane, and then the other plane will take you to Metropolitan Airport in Michigan. Then I was like, all right, that's what I'll do, So, and the whole time I'm still nervous about this airplane, because I ain't never rode an airplane before. And so get on this, I say bye to them, and I get on this airplane, and they give me a window seat right by the wing where you could see the motor, and and I'm nervous, my hands are sweating, because I'm just still thinking about that plane that went down on 94 freeway, and so we go up, we ride for a little bit, and this guy that's next to me starts talking to me, and I told him it was my first. He could see that I was nervous, and I told him it was my first time riding a plane. He said, "Oh, I ride them all the time. It ain't no big deal." And then, anyways, as we're landing in New York, we're coming down, so I'm bracing myself with my feet and my hands on the chair, because I'm just nervous. Then I'm looking out the window, watching the plane come down, and then I see the motor. The motor comes apart, and then I really grip, and I'm like, "Oh no," and he's like, "What's going on?" And the guy next to me said, "What's going on?" And I said, "The motor's coming apart." And then he started laughing. He's like, "That's how it slows down. It comes apart, and then it kind of covers a little bit, and that's how it slows it down." But I didn't know that. So after he told me that, I was relieved, because I really thought that motor was coming apart. It was crazy. And I was a young dude at the time too, And then as we're, coming in, I'm trying to look for the Statue of Liberty, and I don't see it. So the thing is, it must have been on the other side of the airplane, But anyways, we land there, and the New York airport is really something to see too, because it's nothing like the Michigan airport, and at that time. And that was something. So I got on another plane. Then I was a little bit more relaxed, and I got on another plane and it went on to Michigan, and then got over there, and then my girlfriend and my girlfriend's mother picked me up at the airport. And I thought that was one adventure though, because, after seeing that plane crash,